There's a lot to freak out about. Not the least of which, it's literally the roaring 20s again. Well, I mean, it can be. It's 2020, and this is the Almost Daily Zencast. Good morning, Drumtopia. How are you today? Are you freaking out, or are you cool as a cucumber? Are you buying all the toilet paper, or are you just like chillaxing at home wondering what the actual F? Welcome to another episode of the Almost Daily Zencast. I am your eccentric yet ever humble host, the incorrigible Mr. Zeppo. Thank you for tuning in. As always, I say to you, dear listeners, namaste. It is impossible not to proceed without acknowledging the situation with COVID-19. I have been perhaps a bit lackadaisical. Some might even accuse me of having been dismissive of the coronavirus. What I have been concerned with and focused on is the apparent multi-pronged disinformation approach campaign, or campaigns plural, that seem to be floating through the internet. And I have been aware of the sad, harsh, and undeniably tragic realities and their, in my perspective, relative scale to other things. Without any disrespect to any survivors impacted by the rapid spread and aggressiveness of this particular, what have they been calling it? Supposedly novel coronavirus. One of apparently 20 some odd coronaviruses. Virus. So without any disrespect to those impacted, those who may have lost a loved one, or those who have succumbed to this admittedly disastrous, rapidly spreading super flu, mega flu, because it is simultaneously both true and kind of incorrect. So true and not true. COVID-19 is just the flu or just the common cold. COVID-19 is just the common cold, like a square is a rectangle. But a rectangle isn't necessarily a square, is it? So like the common flu, the things we call the common cold and the common flu are arguably not quite the same as COVID-19. So, I digress. I want to finish the thought. All of my statements, past, present, and future, regarding this official now, as it has been declared by the WHO, the the World Health Organization, you know, WHO official pandemic. No disrespect to those previously impacted. No disrespect to those currently being impacted. No disrespect to those who worry about potentially being impacted in the future. I humbly suggest to anybody and everybody listening, now and in or the future, that we must always remember to stay calm. Now, I get it. That can very easily be accused of being cliched. And, ironically, in the face of stressful conditions, it is very difficult to keep calm. And telling a person to their face, in any form, in any wording, to try to remain calm is typically, under normal stressful circumstances, not the most immediately helpful choice. Choosing to engage in conscious, meditative, practices that facilitate calmness, that's a whole other story, right? Doing so under the extended provisions of precautionary self-distancing, still possibly useful. I would humbly recommend. Remaining calm at a theoretical level, right? Let's look at that for a hot second. Remaining calm is, in my humble opinion, crucial, critical, central to our own individual and collective probabilities of getting through this without it going wildly out of control. Now, the cool thing is, most of y'all should have probably seen enough movies. Right? They've made enough movies that hopefully, instead of just flying into a wild panic, we might remember and reflect the common narrative. If we all, and I'm joking here, but I'm also, I'm jokingly serious, and I'm seriously joking. But let's consider this for a hot second. If we were to authentically, genuinely contemplate the foolish, erroneous, often ego-driven series of missteps, mistakes, horrible plans, overreactions common to cinematic and literary genres dealing with pandemics and with worldwide emergency situations at large, we might glean some useful information. More useful, and I know that people are like, movies? Fuck movies. But honestly, there's, and I mean from a sort of satirical lens, like looking at all the ridiculously horrible things that people do that make things worse, and making sure we don't do those. There's some pretty interesting, intelligent, often dark, often thought-provoking movies about our fear of massively communicable disease. But we must always attempt to remain calm and refresh our perspective. If we're going to actually intelligently think our way through a situation, yes. I don't say that flippantly, right? I mean that. I mean that sincerely. And quite earnestly. It's ironic to me that quite often some of the most actually helpful tidbits are the first to get dismissed, blown off. And, like babies in a bathtub, thrown out with the bathwater, right out that medieval window, through the sluch, or whatever you call that funnel bit. And one of those is perspective, right? Remaining calm, retaining a clear, logistically significant perspective, and not getting, as opposed to, right, not getting caught up in hype, in fear-mongering, in the narrow, hyper-focused perspective that encourages irrational behavior. Many a disaster movie comes to mind. But I digress. I find it interesting, right, that there's some very real impacts going on. And, right, the stock market is having a hell of a time, to put it nicely. And that's whatever that is. And let's keep some perspective there, right? The stock market is not a force of nature. Some people speak of it reverently as if it were. The stock market is also not primarily people trading stocks on the floor of the market. Not anymore. No matter how you slice it, the stock market is, and arguably, I guess maybe I could be wrong, but from the best of my recollection, based on some various things I've read, the stock market is primarily trade being active. I don't know if I'm using the right language, but trades being transactioned semi-autonomously by algorithmic or algorithm-driven black box artificial intelligence agents. In other words, and I honestly, sincerely recall in some early exposition, some early journalism about this, that these things are metaphorically described as black boxes with an on-off button. That while they are, of course, not really quite that there's not a lot that any given, quote, human operator, might actually be able to do to the algorithm as it's trading, other than order it to shut down as quickly and as reasonably as possible, given how many transactions it's managing at such a high rate of speed. If you'll recall, we've in not too distant past recently had at least one, if not two, arguably three, one-day disruption mini corrections or adjustments or drops in trade value that then rebounded, that were attributed to, quite openly, the high volume of artificial intelligence trading. So that's a whole other thing, right? But the fact that now things are spiraling like dramatically out of control, and that President Trump is doing his own personal best to kind of bluff his way into making it sound like things are going to be honky-dory in just a couple of days here. And I'll have more to say about the actual speech. Come back to that in a hot minute, probably after a quick break. We have to keep some perspective about things, acknowledging without dismissing or diminishing the realities, right? And also not getting so frenetically and in an emotion, high emotionality kind of way, caught up in something without enough perspective and context to make sense of it. So, right, a death is a death, and that sucks. And people dying blows. And people dying from a disease that is, to some degree or another, very much like other diseases that we take for granted and that we also shouldn't, right? Doesn't mean that we should take for granted how we approach this, but it also doesn't mean we should go crazy, like banana, batshit crazy. Or, and here's where I think it's, particularly important, we should be very vigilant about what kinds of information we buy into, right? How many times, I'm 44 years old in this particular narrative, and I don't know about you, but I've lost count of how many times since I was a senior in high school, right? Since I turned 18 and started paying attention to the world a little bit more. Well, actually, I was paying attention to the world pretty seriously as a kid. But how many times have we heard the alarmist, we should be screaming from our rooftops, FEMA's coming to kill us all and throw us in plastic, vacuum seal, fake coffins, FEMA coffins. Has it happened? No. Now, is that enough to dismiss all of the concerns presented by the conspiracy community? Of course not. As I've said before, and I'll say again, and forgive me if it gets exhausting, the way things work is that, as somebody recently put it on Facebook, there's a frequency war going on, right? And that's where it really gets like nuts and bolts serious. Coronavirus is what it is, and we can look at some technical numbers, and this is what I was getting at with like perspective. Okay, so according to, let's look at that. But let's put a pin in frequency war, and I don't mean 5G and nanobots, because let's get real, we don't have flying cars yet. I don't think we have wicked, evil, rip you up from the inside nanobots in flying intelligent dust quite yet. I really doubt that that's true. I could be wrong. And if I am wrong, here's why I don't want to get sidetracked, but here's why I say we gotta be vigilant about the crazier sounding the conspiracy theory is, the more you should look for evidence that it isn't true before you buy in, right? I thought, maybe I'm wrong, and forgive me for getting hoity-toity about this, but as an observer of the conspiracy theory, a non-partisan, impartial observer of the conspiracy theory community that's gone a little bit nerdy about it, but not necessarily in a Bible chapter and verse kind of way, I thought that, the badge of honor with conspiracy theorists is that they are ever vigilant for new information, ever open-minded, and ever seeking the most likely to actually be true. Oh, I was talking about this at length with one of my siblings on something that I tape recorded, but it's I wasn't live, so I am right this hot second. So I need to go dig it up and like sit down, listen to it, and edit it. But to borrow some language, one must always be conscious of some certain vectors. I don't mean disease vectors, although always try to be aware of those too, right? Because there are real disease vector things to be aware of, and then there's nonsense things being bandied about that just don't make any sense. But one of the most important things is like Occam's razor. The fewer moving parts, the less bizarrely complicated, the more rooted. Another way of putting this, and I understand that I'm no longer reading from the definition of Occam's razor. Occam's. Is there an R? Is there not an R? If there's an R, is it silent for some reason? The debate rages. But mathematically speaking, it states that the simplest solution with the fewest moving parts and the fewest assumptions is the most likely to be true, right? And another way of stating it, I think, I could be wrong, but I think that the explanation that is closest to organic reality, not our ideas about reality, but organic reality as it actually is, independent of our misconceptions, separate, whatever's the most rooted in that makes the most sense to me. Thank you very much. So any of the crazy zombie, bloodthirsty, it's going to blow us up from the inside with 5G, turn you into a zombie, make you a robot. Mind you, I'm a robots are coming kind of guy. But I don't think that the coronavirus has got anything to do with it. I think the robots are coming in the not too distant future, and that we're not quite there yet. But I could be wrong. Maybe we're already robots, right? Maybe, there's a movie. There's a great movie with that funny guy from Ant-Man, the sidekick. He's like the leading guy in a great, I don't have it in front of me. It's a great addition in that sort of like, it's a little bit horrible. No offense to everybody involved. But the script could have been, I don't know, different. But the idea is fun and enjoyable. And, I give it thumbs up. Plural, 2 thumbs. In terms of fun robot ideas. In as much as that, like, they do their best to not give it away. Sorry for the spoiler alert. But as robot movies go, it's a fun little like, oh, wait, what? Okay, I digress. Now that I've ruined that movie for everybody who hasn't seen it yet, go see it. Oh, you don't know what movie it is. I couldn't remember the title. That's fine. There. Nothing was spoiled. No one knows what movie I'm talking about. They all realize, they think that there's been an alien invasion, or that they're prophesying an alien invasion that's about to happen, and they can't quite tell which one it is, but actually, they're all robots. And every couple of blah, blah, blah years, they go through a weird purge, recycle, but now they're like fighting it because they're like, apocalypse be damned, we're going to defend ourselves, we got guns, and they keep fighting it until they find out that they are themselves already robots, that they are not people. They got wires and conduit and, like stuff, not organs. But I digress. Perspective, folks. Y'all freaking out about coronavirus? The robots are literally coming in like 11 years. And also a giant asteroid that almost wipes us all out. If we don't get the robots' help, it's pretty much dead certain it does pretty much almost wipe us all out. Like, back to the caveman era level. Very few people survive. And all knowledge, technology, etc. is lost. And it becomes a brutal, naked people against the elements survivalism. Do we want to get there? Or do we want to like meet the robots with some wokefulness, to adapt a term I've borrowed from the young kids, and some like some, oh shit, let's not destroy ourselves and or piss off the robots so that they immediately destroy us, because all those options are still explicitly available. Schrodinger's cat, however cute he and or she may look when it's poking its snarky face out of the box, let us not forget this, folks. This is the critical thing about Schrodinger's cat. It is always simultaneously dead in the box until it is observed. But even then, in some very nearby parallel membrane dimension, layer, movie, time frame, timeline, whatever you want to call it, it is dead. And it's not just one, it's all the multiple approaching infinite varieties or variations of the universes that required it to turn out to be dead for all of it to work the way it does. In an infinite universe, all probability waveform functions that were ever likely and or chosen between are actually expressly manifest. You're just living through one particular clusterfuck of, surfing through one fractal zoom of, your experience. I digress. I was going to give context. So let's think about that. That's some meta context for you right there. We're living in an infinite fractal holographic living universe in which there is multiple. Don't get jealous, folks. There are multiple universes all bundled together in a lovely time context probability waveform rope flow. Rope flow is pretty appropriate, I think, although kind of awkwardly sounding. As awkwardly sounding was used just now. But where Hillary Clinton or whoever else you want was president, right? In an infinite universe where the fractal hologram is infinitely unfolding all finite possibilities in order to manifest the variety of experiences that each vessel of consciousness could possibly experience and is experiencing. They all happened. So there's plenty of realities happening nearby in which we've already peaked and already doomed ourselves beyond repair, beyond return, right? Hopefully we're not in one of those, knock on wood. But I digress. I was going to give slightly less mind-boggling context earlier. I was going to reference, before I trashed my voice, the official Coronavirus Disease 2019, or COVID-19, Situation Report, flyer number 51. Data as reported by the national authorities by 10 a.m. Central Eastern Time, the 11th of March, 2020, from the World Health Organization. The situation in numbers, according to this pamphlet, and mind you, if you're new to the show, pause if you suddenly feel the urge to tell me all about the new world order and how the World Health Organization is its puppet. Trust, I've heard. I've been down that rabbit hole. Feel free to comment and throw that stuff around. Just know, as you're listening now, that I'm not unaware of that. I'm reading their shit anyways. Why? Because ultimately, they're working with real numbers, I think. And I've got another source, right? I'm going to compare numbers. So, hopefully the World Health Organization doesn't sue me for any of that commentary. I wasn't claiming any statements about their veracity or their involvement in the NWO. I was just acknowledging that there are such conspiracy theories, plural, multiple varieties of them out there. Like I said, impartial observer. I make no statements as to what I think. I do give my opinion about what is my Occam's razor bottom line, which is a whole nother story. Put a pin in that. If you haven't heard, there's plenty of episodes where I could touch base with that and or go on a deep dive. So hop around if you like, but I won't bore you with it now. Let's get through these numbers real quick, and then I'm going to take a break. It's 30 minutes and 30 seconds. Okay, so according to the World Health Organization, for better or worse, whether you think they're the evil ones or the heroes, they currently report, as of Wednesday, right, the 11th, that globally, 118,322 confirmed cases, 4,623 of which were new. That's cases of people that have been identified with the coronavirus 19, causing their symptomology. So, the next, there's so many things I could say about that. First of all, we're severely under testing, right? Everyone's talking about that. Is that the left? Here in Trumptopia, the left-wing media is criticizing the president for the way that the whole of government approach that they've taken has been kind of flimsy and wibbly-wobbly and sort of like, we're going to do things, we were going to do things, we are still going to do some things, doing some things, moving the goalposts, changing the time zones. Millions of test kits will be available, have been being made available, but not quite yet available yet. Severely under testing, right? So that number, first of all, let's be real, arguably could easily be half as much as, again, more. Maybe even twice as much. And I don't think I'm sick, by the way. I really do just, trash my voice. Talking to, I'm in a theater, on stage, when I really shouldn't be. Which is weird, right? Because you do plays like that and my voice is fine. I don't know. I didn't warm up. I just started talking. Now, that's not some sinister plot, what I just pointed out. Not my voice, but the numbers being probably more. In my humble opinion, the numbers are probably more because not every country is testing as thoroughly as other countries. We're going to go look at this other website and look at some comparative numbers, maybe after a break and taking a pause. But I do want to encourage you to do some real looking up. And caveat, folks, and this applies not just to this, not just to any conspiracy theory, but to life. Googling it is not doing research. Okay? Being a scientist in a laboratory with real scientists, hopefully under maliciously corrupt, money-influenced setup, for lack of a better term, that's research. Googling it is Googling it. So I'm not pretending to be an expert. I'm just a dude with Google and an opinion about what I find. And this is the World Health Organization, arguably. They are doing real research into all kinds of diseases, right? So I wanted to give context, and here's I'm kind of rambling a bit, but here's my point. 118,322 confirmed cases of people being sick. Now, what makes it a pandemic is how quickly it spread out of China. But let's not forget that 80,000 of those, 80,955 of those, were actually all still in China. Okay? Now, it's also spread to a bazillion countries. There's a lot of countries on the map with a red dot on it. For shizzle, man. I'm not denying that. But let's also think about let's take into consideration other things, right? Total deaths. Let's do, and now this gets scary, because the death percentage, the death rate has been upgraded, and it can no longer be said to be anywhere near what the regular flu death percentage rate is. And that number will change dramatically as we identify more and more cases. And knock on wood, I think that the number is going to get worse for two reasons. As everyone's been kind of, the talking heads on the news, on all the channels, are talking about how the health professionals are saying it's going to get worse. I think here's two reasons why the numbers are going to get worse. One, testing and identifying people that have coronavirus and not some other thing is going to improve. That's going to just catch up with its laggy ass self here in Trumptopia and in the other countries where the deployment of usable, accessible testing mechanisms and procedures has lagged. That's going to catch up with the need, and we're going to get a big, huge bloom in the number. Because we're going to identify people that are already currently sick that are not being counted in that number. So the number of sick people won't have magically exploded. The number of sick people identified by the authorities with the capacity to test will have exponentially increased. On top of that, I'm not denying, I may get lumped into the group of people that spoke flippantly of and or dismissively of COVID-19. And in my defense, I dare say, no. I've always said, take it seriously. Take the real flu seriously. The real flu, the regular flu. I take every disease that comes at me seriously. And I'm a strong believer in moderate vaccination, especially for young people in school, and then also a sort of get out there and expose yourself and build a healthy immune system by being out in the world, being exposed by stuff and surviving it. I was having a discussion with some folks about this in person recently. And it's if you really think about it, setting aside the conspiracy theories about vaccine and setting aside the argument between pro-vaxxers and anti-vaxxers, let's just set that aside. All things being equal and presuming, knock on wood, the best cases of scenario, and I don't pretend to know, and I'm not claiming to state that the best case scenario should be presumed default, assumed to be the actual fact of the matter, right? I'm not saying that. I'm just saying, let's, for argument's sake, take the best case scenario. What is a vaccine? If it isn't causing autism, and if it isn't riddled with a bunch of crap your body doesn't need, it is, in theory, a delivery mechanism that supports your immune system in the process of also exposing your immune system to the disease vis-a-vis some methodology that's been scientifically tested to invoke or provoke a response of creating an immunodefense body, all the white blood cells in your body, in your blood flow and stuff, and thereby basically giving you a muted, supposedly toned down case of whatever it is you're fighting, so that your body fights it, and then knows it and survives it and increases its immunodefenses against it, right? That's supposed to be a scientifically controlled reproduction under best case scenario of what happens normally in nature, which is a new disease comes about, it infects people, it tests itself as a disease. If it's really a new variant, it goes on a journey of like trying to, get spread, because that's what it as a life form is trying to do, right? Is propagate. And our bodies as a collective and as individuals goes through the slightly traumatic and by all means, of course, difficult, depressing, a little bit scary, challenging, and sometimes very disruptive process of surviving the disease by exposure and sorting out who has pre-existing conditions, pre-existing immunodeficiencies, etc., etc. I've said this before and I'll say it again, and people can choose to hate, or people can contemplate it deeply and wrap their brains around it and maybe, get to a Zen place with it. No one gets out of life alive. If we really contemplate life and death, now I'm not meaning to be dismissive, right? That doesn't mean we should all get suicidal and drink bleach. That's crazy talk. Also, when you're looking out there for crazy nonsense on the internet, pay attention to what kinds of dumb, crazy remedies. I can't believe that people are peddling drinking bleach, eating Tide Pods, and swallowing borax as a way to boost your defenses against coronavirus. Ultimately, friends, I hate to be really tough love about it, vaccine or no vaccine, the bottom line is, in nature, in reality, whatever the pharmaceutical companies try to do, and whether that's admirable or corrupt as fuck, in nature, the truth is humanity will survive COVID-19 as it has survived everything else, because we will continue to spread like a virus ourselves, spread like a cancer ourselves, and make more babies than any virus or disease can destroy until some superbug wipes us all out, or we procreate hard enough to move to other planets and then go fight giant talking super diseases. Life is life. And quite frankly, and I say this for context because I'm about to compare death numbers, right? And I don't want to be accused of being morbid. This is like a Zen thing. If we can embrace death, not in a morbid kill each other kind of way, not in a morbid destroy ourselves kind of way, but in a, hey, it's real and it is part of life, and come to the understanding that it is, quite frankly, a prerequisite to life, let that statement sink in for a hot minute. Death is a prerequisite to life. If there's anything to be, if there's any really hard lesson to be taken away from the last, 30, 40 years worth of near pandemic, and other sort of vilified, scarified, fear-monger-ified, and probably profiteered on-ified, to go with the rhyme scheme, the really ham-fisted rhyme scheme, is that two things are probably realistically going on. Fear-mongering campaigns in every which way direction to get you to go binge buy whatever junk, and to buy, and people selling you fake remedies that are no good and or toxic because they don't give a shit, because they'll make a buck on anything. And the actual real life hardcore living through and surviving of these diseases by the human species, vis-a-vis the actual natural organic process I've already rambled about at length in this episode. So I'll leave you to contemplate that while I tease you with this comparison. This is, and admittedly, this situation report number 51, it was issued by data as reported by national authorities at 10 a.m. Central Eastern Time Zone, I think, on the 11th of March. So that was yesterday, 10 a.m. yesterday. It's 9 a.m. Pacific Standard Time on Thursday, and there's this other site, right, that called Worldometer. Go check them out for references. I pulled up their reference info. Whenever citing this website, please read the following. Author, Worldometers, recently updated and officially changed to non-plural worldometer.com, .info. Publishing date, 12 March 2020, which is weird because, it dates every day. It publishes every day. So the publishing date is always whatever date you're looking at it. Out of place of publication, Dover, Delaware. They are... I really meant to wrap this episode up and not go any further. They're an interesting live analytics, statistical number meter or live counter site. And I'm going to come back and talk about some stuff, but the context I was going to get at before I went off on all those spirally tangents is that according to the Global Burdens of Diseases report from the World Health Organization, as published and estimatedly daily live tracked on based on previous estimates from previous years, etc., they're kind of presenting a live clicking, rolling meter, sort of like the deficit meter or the national debt meter of a bunch of different factoids. So, but the one I want to reference right now, which isn't rolling very fast. In fact, it only just clicked up by a factor of 2 while I've been talking. But the World Health Organization puts out a series of reports called the Global Burden of Disease. According to that, this site creates a meter that is ticking up slightly, that estimates the total growing number of communicable diseases deaths this year, communicable disease deaths, at 2,537,089 as of me reading it right now, right? And this site is free to use, and one of the things I was going to read off as I introduced it earlier, before I spiraled out of control and made the episode way too long, was that they were nominated in the top 10 list of best free, fact-based information resource websites by the National Library Association or some such body. Right underneath of that, probably also by the World Health Organization. And this is something that President Trump was tweeting, and I'm not stating this number for the same reasons he is, right? I'm not trying to minimize anything. I'm just trying to give perspective on everything. So that many communicable disease deaths this year and counting. It's now up to 2,537,117. Seasonal flu deaths this year is counted at 94,965. Deaths by cancer, there's different sources from all of these, right? The cancer deaths is also from the WHO. The seasonal flu is a combination of sources, the CDC and the World Health Organization, which clarifies that up to 650,000 people die of respiratory diseases linked to seasonal flu each year, right? So in other words, people are dropping left and right. And COVID-19 is a new threat, yes, but it's also one of many, 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 many threats. And that when looked at in relation to these threats, it's going to meter out to not being, as it's going to average out. Now, is it pandemic status? The World Health Organization and other authorities have decreed it so, in large part because it is spreading and being contagious really dynamically fast. So we should, as people, take the kinds of precautions that, as someone else snarkily pointed out, we should be taking anyways, even when there isn't a global disease epidemic. Because there's plenty of diseases flying around that can be communicated and cause problems, if not for ourselves, but for others very indirectly by being, easy to survive and communicate. What I wanted to get at by bringing out some of this context. Oh, and I didn't read the deaths caused by cancer this year. That's currently tracking at 1,605,155. There's another one that I actually haven't seen on here yet, which I'm surprised, because it is tracked or referenced on Wikipedia as a World Health Organization estimate that about 7 million people, and I've talked about this before, but 7 million people a year die due to diseases attributable to air pollution. Okay? So if you take a 7 million people a year average that can be directly attributed to air pollution getting into you and causing whatever problems and killing you, and you do the math, that's 500,000 people a month. A little bit of perspective, right? So people are falling dead everywhere, left and right. Millions of people. And that is a tragedy and a somber thing that must be dealt with integrity and with respect, right? All those things that we look up to. And I think that we should always strive to not freak out. So for context and a reminder, now this is the number specific to coronavirus according to this Worldometer site. Different than the World Health Organization, which is in theory a modeled estimate based on the data collected from all previous hard fact numbers. And also, these guys on their page list a different source for clarity. Let me read that to you now. The charts above are updated after the close of day at GMT 0. The latest data is provisional pending delayed reporting and adjustments from China's National Health Council, or whatever NHC stands for. As of right now, according to this, what is it called again? Worldometer's website, coronavirus cases, 129,347. Deaths, 4,749. And a fun number to not neglect. Recovered, 68,661. So closed cases total to date, 73,410, which had an outcome of 68,661 of them, 94% being recovered and discharged. All right? So out of all the closed cases, according to these numbers, And this is a bit alarming. And again, perspective. Always be adjusting your perspective and never like lock down and freak out too hard about any one thing or take for granted too hard in any one direction, right? But if these numbers, according to these numbers, 73,410 closed cases of confirmed coronavirus. 68,661 of them recovered and or discharged. That's a 94% success rate. 4,749 of them resulted in deaths. That's 6%. Now, what I heard earlier this morning, while perusing some headlines, was that the World Health Organization had elevated the death toll percentage to 3.3. So that's interesting and curious. But there's all kinds, statistics, man. They can always be cut and sliced up a bunch of different ways. I want to wrap it up with a final bit. On the bottom part of this page, there's a sortable chart with names of countries, total cases, current new cases, and this data says that is reset at midnight, GMT 0. So total deaths and new deaths. Let's take a breather, and so the new numbers will give us like a day scale. In the country where it is the worst, according to this chart, in China, 80,796 total cases. As of this current update, new cases plus 18. So only 18 new cases in China. In China, arguably, the country where it's been the worst. So, for it being the worst, that's, well, I guess I didn't sort by max that way. I had it sort by max total cases. New cases, the maximum new cases in one day is curiously not China, it's Iran. I resorted and realized that I may have been misspeaking. China is the place where it has been the worst. It seems, according to those numbers, to be mellowing out. That's a very unscientific, unprofessional statement on my part. Don't anybody sue me. But in Iran, total cases 10,075. Now, Iran was relatively new in the news breaking in just the last couple of weeks, right? Its new cases load as of this update, and we're going to come back and we're going to track these numbers of the next several weeks, days and weeks, right? Because I think that kind of perspective helps to clarify what's really going on in the world. Because it's easy to start hyperventilating and going crazy and imagining worst case scenario right outside your doorstep, when in reality that may not be the case. And having a clear-sighted vision of what is actually going on will help prevent things getting worse, in my humble opinion. So there are total new cases in Iran, and hearts, my heart goes out to them. Honest, sincere thoughts and prayers to everybody impacted everywhere around the world. But their total new cases is only, and I don't mean to be disparaging or dismissive, but it literally is only 1,075, right? So when sorted by largest to smallest, all the new cases sort this way. The heaviest new case total for one day, as of right now, is 1,075 in Iran. The next number is 687 in Spain, which is pretty gnarly. The next number is 215 in Switzerland, 154 in Germany, 114 in South Korea, 111 in Netherlands, 101 in Denmark, 99 in Sweden, 85 in Belgium, 74 in Norway, 63 new cases in USA. Now, and it keeps dropping lower and lower and lower, right? 56 in Austria, 44 in Finland, 32 in Slovenia, 28 in Australia, 18 in China, 18 in Iceland, 17 in Portugal, 17, 16, 12, 11, 11, 8, blah, blah, blah. So we get through Portugal, Brazil, Poland, Luxembourg, etc. In India, 11 plus. Thailand, 11 plus. Now, how many of these are trending up? How many of these are trending down? This is a static view. I don't know, and I haven't heard any professional analysis that I could quote or paraphrase to give you a better idea. If we go to total deaths and rank that column, the strongest is China with a total of 3,169 deaths. Now let's pause and really think about that right there for context. That's the vast majority, not just a plurality, that's the vast majority of deaths. Now, I'm not one to agree with or use or try to appease the NIMBYism mentality of not in my backyard, oh great, at least it's happening somewhere else. But what I am saying that as a fact, it clarifies that if the total of deaths is a grand total of 4,000 right now, and 3,000 of them happen in one country, then everyone else's cases are much, much lower in fatalities as of right now. Will they get worse? Will they peter out? We don't know. And there's some really dark forecasts and some optimistic forecasts and some extremes in either direction. And as I like to point out, as a cautionary provision, there's a lot of fear-mongering. There's the everyday average basic, we're kind of used to it, we all can kind of like laugh and mock at it, fear-mongering of mainstream cable news. But there's also a lot of crazier shit on the internet. Don't fall for the fear-mongering. Like the nonsense that's nonsense is actually nonsense. Now, I shared those numbers in good faith that after reading the about section and blah, blah, blah about this, and this, they pride themselves in being a free resource that gets referenced in all kinds of academic journals in a bunch of different places. And they've got some interesting numbers, which we may come back and revisit for other episodes, for other purposes. For example, in their society and media section, their live counter ticker tape parade for new book titles published this year currently stands at 522,132. Neat. It's good to know, because I'm someone who aspires to one day finish writing a book or 17 and publish them. And I'd like be able to see how many other books are out there on the day that I publish a book. So, etc. I think I used their website in accordance to their regulations. I don't think anyone should sue me over the use of their, or referencing of their information. And that's worldometers.info. If you want to check out those numbers for yourself. They've got their coronavirus page, which is worldometers.info/coronavirus. And apparently they may or may not be changing their name to singular Worldometer soon. I read that somewhere on their about page. If it turns out this is totally bogus data, A, I apologize to you. B, I am holding myself self-indemnified. If corporations can self-indemnify and release themselves of any indemnity for providing their services, I do that now, here and forever, retroactively applicable and future actively applicable for all content on my podcast. I self-indemnify myself. I shared that in all good conscience, thinking that whatever limited due diligence I was able to conduct proved that it seems to be a reliable place, quoting theoretically reliable sources. Right? Now, obviously, if the New World Order conspiracy theories are actually true, and the WHO is part of the NWO in a big and meaningful, corrupt AF kind of way, then who knows? But I'm not here to make those accusations. I'm here to ask questions and share what I find when I words into Google, because I'm allowed to do that, right? Also, just for shits and giggles, folks, as you may be hearing lots of different things and lots of different claims being made, do yourself a favor and set aside the conspiracy theories for one hot minute and go ahead and read the CDC's website. Go to cdc.gov/coronavirus and just like read what they've got to say and click around for yourself. If nothing else, to know what is actually being stated by them. Some of the weirdly, oddly most fake of the fake news out there is claims that somebody said something that they patently, or published something on their social media that they obviously didn't. That we can all be able to discern and reject by just going and actually reading the sources of information that are worth looking into. Now, before you get crazy about me, I don't mean believe everything you read on there blindly, but check it out for yourself. And don't believe the conspiracy theories claims that it's all made up and make-believe blindly either, right? You aren't doing research if you aren't investigating all sides and comparing and contrasting multiple sources. Whether you're a scientist in a laboratory or whether you're an internet troll on the internet. If you claim to do research but then only regurgitate the thing that you blindly believe in, then you didn't do research. And all of your argumentation from there on out is kind of easily rejected and moot because you didn't do research, right? And if you just Googled it, own up to that and call it just Googling. I'm not saying that I'm heavily researched in this. I'm saying what I'm saying. I Google some stuff, and I, am trying to find multiple sources to try to compare and contrast. And I'm also, basing it on just plain old life experience of being alive, having been alive as long as I have, and, watching what happens in the news and what doesn't happen in the news. And here's something that happens and doesn't happen. The news riles up a bunch of hype. The politicians rile up a bunch of hype. People get sick and humanity survives. Unless it doesn't. Until it doesn't, though, let's not freak the fuck out. Because you're going to die anyways. I'm going to die anyways. Everybody's going to keel over dead at one point anyways. And as one millennial was quoted as saying by various outlets recently, if the coronavirus is going to be taking everybody out, then I might as well be somewhere having fun. Now, forgive me. I find that humorous and hilarious. And, if you want to live that hardcore of a level of what YOLO might mean, God bless you. Because to a certain degree, I'm not against it. The real sense of herd inoculation is that we all have to survive the disease, right? And I'm not saying, wow, I've already gone around in circles and said everything I got to say. I'm going to take a break, folks. Sorry for rambling for so long. So remember, remain calm, wash your hands, don't overdo it with the antibacterial stuff, because guess what? That's proven to be bad for you and helps other germs get past your defenses because you're killing good things that eat stuff that are part of your defenses. Too much alcohol on your skin is bad for your system. But curiously, it is the alcohol from something I read, which may or may not be true. I don't know. It's something I came across on the internet recently in the last few days. Apparently, the reason that hand sanitizer is working with coronavirus is because the alcohol helps break it down. So maybe just, a hot toddy, which is, I did also see some article being passed around claiming that someone tested and confirmed with coronavirus, refused treatment, and then, quote, beat it with a hot toddy. I don't know that that's true. I don't blindly believe that may be the case. But let me tell you what. I have learned from real life experience the following. when you are sick, or rather, when it's flu season and there is some bug going around, drinking will lower your immune defenses and help get you sick, especially like heavy-handed bingey drinking. Like, you didn't drink and then you drank a lot, and then you didn't drink and then you drank a lot all through the holidays, helps increase the odds of you getting sick. But conversely, I believe the following might be true. I could be wrong, and I'm basing this on personal experience. Once I have been sick, a hot toddy doesn't hurt. Not 17 hot toddies, right? Like a hot toddy before bed helps kind of the throat to feel better. And, doing that a couple of nights seems to help shut it all down. Now, that isn't 12 hot toddies all day, right? That's like lots of hydrating, lots of protein, lots of vitamin C, lots of fluids. People argue about this. I say milk is okay because your phlegm is, phlegm is bad, and there's all this conspiracy theory about how milk is super toxic and that's what phlegm is. And I'm like, I don't know, folks. The times I've been sick, when it was a dry sick, worse. When it was a phlegmy wet sick, and I did things, like home remedy stuff, shorter. That's totally unprofessional, totally unscientific opinion. And in fact, as today is a day where I'm conscious of my energy levels and the fact that my throat is a little bit sore and the fact that I have been out and about running errands, doing a bit of, personal business, I'm going to go take it easy and hydrate myself and do all the things that I generally recommend. And I come back to the point of this episode and what I open with. Remain calm, folks. Don't go being a jerk. Don't go being crazy. Don't go being racist about it either. That's something I haven't even had a chance to talk about yet, but that was real. Early on, it was real, and it's going to probably just get worse, especially if the numbers get worse. Don't go exposing yourself unnecessarily, right? Don't go being balance, balance. Take a chill pill, stay balanced, and realize that, we're going to be navigating some complicated times. And I will come back at you after a brief break. Thanks for tuning in. Sorry for rambling forever long. As I continually fail to fulfill my promise to you of keeping all my episodes shorter. I will come back in post, as I like to call it, someday in the not too distant future, and edit this episode out into multiple segments of shorter lengths. Until then, though, thanks for braving it. Stay safe, folks. Stay warm. Stay dry. Do the things your grandma taught you, Eat healthy. Don't eat crap. And just hunker down and don't get hysterical. Remain calm, folks, and self-radicalize for healing and peace. Remember that healing, I'll leave you with this final bit. Remember this. Doctors don't actually do the healing on you. Now, this isn't crazy, and this sounds crazy. It sounds alarmist, and probably doctors, this might ruffle their feathers a bit. Doctors, like nutritionists, help position you contextually in the best position to let your body do the healing. That's a true. In the ancient Aboriginal, ancient people's wisdom kind of way. The body heals. Now, obviously, you snap your neck, you're not going to insta-heal right out of that, right? You break a leg, and it sucks, and you need some doctoring knowledge to know how to set it. For sure. I'm not throwing the baby out with the bathwater. Duality and non-duality co-create each other. That's what I mean by that, folks. It's, don't negate the one thing just to say the other thing is true. Sometimes two things that seem to disagree with each other just coexist. But I digress. So as we face this epidemic, don't be a fool. Don't be an alarmist. Wash your fucking hands. And if you get sick, cover yourself. Take care of yourself and seclude yourself a little bit. Fundamentals. Like the meme says, it's 2020. We don't have flying cars yet, but we're teaching people how to wash their hands. Yay! Tune in for more, hopefully shorter segments, dropping later today. I've got a lot of opinions on a lot of things, not the least of which is Donald Trump's most recent public bit of speaking. And is he got coronavirus? Question mark. Does he? Because it kind of feels like he might have given it to himself. Stay tuned, folks. I am the incorrigible Mr. Zeppo. This is the Almost Daily Zencast, featuring such special segments as Good Morning Trumptopia and others.